Hello, this is DC Hammer. Welcome to the first live stream on the DC Hammer YouTube channel. Our schedule calls for us to go live daily. That'd be Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. The length of the live streams will depend upon the height and waves of the continuing fake news tsunami, the intensity in the live chat, and when the dinner bell rings, but not necessarily in that order. So let's get right to it. So I start with an article on China. China. This is from China Newsnet. And this article is talking about what's happening with the saber rattling that's coming from communist China. And so once again, the rise of the tyrannical and bloodthirsty communist Chinese dragon, which represents a clear and present danger to America and the entire free world, is on the march. And so I love the way the Chinese choose their words, as in this headline from this article. It talks about China's quest, and China in this case is communist China, quest to usurp self-ruled Taiwan met with gritty defiance. So those are some pretty interesting word choices. And so what's happening now is that the communist Chinese, the President Xi of communist China, has decided once again to use this opportunity, 2019, the beginning of this year, as an opportunity to rattle his saber and to try to press the free nation of Taiwan to relinquish their freedom and their democracy and to once again become part of the communist Chinese regime. So as they continue to go forward with their island building program in the South China Sea, I'm putting up here a map. This is on Google Earth of the South China Sea. You can see over here on the top left, this is the mainland China. And this is Taiwan right over here on the top right, and just to the east of mainland China. And below that you got the Philippine Islands, Indonesia below that, and over on the west side you've got Vietnam and the other Southeast Asian territories. So what's going on now is, if you've been paying attention to the news, that China has been in a variety of building programs around the world, and for this particular building program what they are doing is building islands in the South China Sea. And it's interesting the way that they have named one. And before I move down to actually show you where the building is going on and where the problems are occurring, I just wanted to show you the relative distance from mainland China, again up here on the left, which represents to the west and north of the Philippines. That giant space up there, that is China. And so you got this massive Chinese nation, and what they have decided to do is they are building islands. They are dumping dirt and rock into the ocean in an area that enabled them to reach the surface by doing some of that elemental material dumping, and to create their own little islands out there. And one of them, the interesting name that they've given one of these areas out there is Mischief Reef. And so that's the perfect name for what's going on in that island area, and then to the left of Palawan. And what they are doing is building, and let me show you exactly what they are constructing in that area. They are building in this is Mischief Reef, and this is now a number of little islands that they have created, that the communist Chinese have created off the coast of other countries, not off of their own coast. Their own coast is off this map farther to the left. To the right here again, you see the Philippines, and down just below where they're doing all this building is Indonesia. And then again over on the left-hand side, you can see Vietnam and the other areas of Southeast Asia. But this is what the Chinese are doing. They are building reefs, island platforms that they are using, aiming at missiles. They're going to build these platforms for delivering missiles to that area if they don't step in line and do what the communist Chinese want. They do have, though, a little bit of a problem with Taiwan, and that is that Xi Jinping, who is the president of China, was born in 1953. Having been born in that year, that makes him a water snake. Now, that he is the president, he is the leader. The lifetime dictator. He has assigned himself that title for life. He is now in conflict with Tsai Ing-wen. Now, she is the president of Free Taiwan. Now, that's interesting because she was born in 1956. That was the year of the fire monkey. Now, there's different years of monkeys in the Chinese calendar, and this one is the fire monkey, and the fire monkey happens to be the most aggressive one, the one that protects itself most. Got this now resistance of Taiwan being adverse to the interests of the communist Chinese. And so what's happening now over the past few months, Xi has stepped up his tactics in order to confront the Free State of Taiwan and to get them to drop their drawbridge, kind of like, drop the wall. We don't need walls. Taiwan would prefer to have a wall between itself and China. That wall is called the South China Sea. But the Red Chinese, the Communist Chinese, want that to go away and for the Taiwanese to come back into the fold and become good little communists. So the president of Taiwan is not so inclined. And upcoming months, my belief is there is going to be a movement on the part of the Red Chinese, the Chinese communists, to bring Taiwan back into the fold, or it could lead to some form of aggression and or violence on the part of the Communist Chinese. So the negotiations have been ongoing since Taiwan declared itself independent, or actually created a self-governing democracy on that island way back when. But just be advised that this is going to be a hot spot for this coming year, and we are going to have increased tensions and issues with what's going on between Communist China and the nationalist democracy on Taiwan. Next story I wanted to highlight, I'm kind of jumping over from China to the European side of the pond. And over here, what we've got going on, as highlighted in this Breitbart article, is the Yellow Vests have returned to Paris, and they are protesting the globalist government. So we're talking about the Yellow Vests. This is that nationalist movement that has arisen in France and has now spread to other countries in Europe. And this protest is an outcrop of the resistance against the deep state, the shadow government, the one world, new world order. And in France, that's represented by President Macron, the president of France. So the Yellow Vests, they've returned to Paris. They're protesting again against the flailing and failing French globalist government under Macron. And the tensions are not easing. The people are in the streets. Police boats are making their way along the River Seine. There are protesters on the Champs-Élysées, one of the famous avenues in Paris, leading up to the main drag where all the big shops are, and then you've got the Eiffel Tower and so on there. And so what you've got now is riots in the street. You've got the protesters not backing down. A lot of people in the military and the police force and even the fire and emergency services people have joined with the protesters. This is not about the price of gas. This is not about food sources alone. This is about the after effects and what takes place in a country, a free society, when it's overrun by open borders, when they have put the interests of the horde of invading immigrants over the well-being of the state, and you've got people that are not putting up with it anymore, as the horde that has come in from North Africa and the Middle East, these coming from cultures that are completely incompatible with the desires as far as lifestyle and governing the society and the culture represented by the indigenous population in that country. And what you've got once again then is people in the street marching in mass. That is the Notre Dame Cathedral in downtown Paris, and they are walking across the bridge from the left bank to the right bank. They are dressed in almost like Antifa gear, except, these are the good people. These are the good ones. These are the people that are trying to protect France from the invading horde. So the bottom line is it's a continuing confrontation between the people that represent freedom and nationalism within these countries and the elitist people that are in charge at this point, and hopefully not for much longer, that believe that they know best and that they will continue to hold their own country hostage to the misgivings of the indigenous population. Don't forget now, the other day, Merkel in Germany came out and told the people around the world and of Germany that they have no right to resist what is going on from the New World Order, and that the government is fully willing to completely disregard what the people that live in their country want, because people like Merkel, people like Macron have dedicated themselves as the leaders of the planet and the people that know better than the people that actually lived and thrive and built these nations. And somehow I don't see anything coming out from this that will mean that the Macrons and the Merkels of the world prevail. Macron, his approval rating, I understand now, is headed down towards single digits. He's in the low double digits. He's down around 12% as the last read on his popularity went. People are, as you can see in this photo, in Paris, France, they are now doing the blocking of the roads. They are completely choking these main thoroughfares where all the commerce takes place, completely choking it off with flags of nationalism, protesting what is going on not only in France, but all of the rest of the European Union. And bottom line is, this is when people say enough is enough, or too much is too much, and they aren't putting up with it anymore. So I believe that it's only going to get worse to the point where Macron either has to step down or take immediate and strong measures in order to address the concerns and the grievances of his population, or all we're going to see is chaos in the streets. We're going to see more things being burned. We're going to see people just resisting to the point where the entire society, the entire country of France, just completely melts down. And I know there's areas that are still peaceful out in the suburbs and out in the farmlands. This kind of activity is not going on, but I'm sure that people that live in those areas are just as committed to the freedom of their own country and for the turning back of these hordes of invaders that has been, that this invasion that's been set upon them by people like Macron and Merkel and George Soros. And whether people are being arrested for their activities or not, it's gotten to the point where they are not going to back down. And even though 4,500, and you'd have to, you know, is the what's the typo on this? It says 4,500. So does that mean 45,000 were arrested, or just 4,500 and somebody put an extra zero? So bottom line is, a lot of people are being arrested, but they are doing so and going to jail and are being sentenced for disorderly conduct and a variety of other things, but they are apparently willing to do it because they know the alternative is to completely lose their country. So hopefully people in this country will not follow in the same path. Hopefully our rightfully elected administration will stay in power and not be overturned by the dark forces that have been unleashed starting at noon on January 3rd in this country. The gavel-wielding Nancy Pelosi chomping at the bit in order to throw us into chaos, overturn the Constitution, throw away our voter laws, drop the drawbridge between Mexico and the United States, allow all of those immigrants just to flood in. And this needs to be stopped. Passionate patriots need to step up. People need to find their voices, do things like make your own live streams, get out there on Twitter and Gab and Minds and other platforms and social media, express your opinions that this is the wrong direction and that we need to turn around. Globalism is not going to work. We need to go back to the founding documents, to the founding principles, to the Constitution. And President Trump is, at this point in time, I believe, waiting for appropriate times to take more important action in order to stem the tide of what is going on right now. And we've still got those documents that have been classified. We've got the 302s, and we've got text messages and emails and a variety of other things. We've got the documents that were going to be coming out, the reports from Horowitz and others as they've been investigating a lot of this activity. And I believe what President Trump is doing is waiting until appropriate times in order to start ratcheting up what he needs to do in order to get things back on track over here. He can't do it alone, and I think a lot of it, especially what he's concentrating on right now, the wall. And he is, in my opinion, he's going to expend every bit of energy in order to get that wall built on our southern border through the normal means of having a congressional action taken in order to fund the wall and to enable us then to put in place the protections that we need so that the immigration into this country can continue, but continue in a legal and an organized way, not in a way that the Democrats want, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the rest, which is let anybody in, whether they are healthy or unhealthy, whether they're terrorists or not, whether they're a member of gangs like MS-13, whether they mean us ill, whether they bring in drugs, they don't care. Because they know that once they get here, they will anchor in one way or another, either through babies or other methods, and they will grow to the point where they then will vote dramatically for the left, and that will overturn any ability of anybody that they disagree with, that the left disagrees with, from preventing them from winning every election. That is the goal. The goal is the left wants to win every election, regardless of whether it's warranted or not. So we'll see what will happen with the wall. My opinion is nothing is going to happen through the legislature with the wall, but President Trump has sown the seeds for his ability to use the powers of the presidency to protect this country. That's one of the major initiatives of the executive branch of the president in particular, is to protect us from foreign issues, from invasion from without, and we still need to protect ourselves from invasion from within, which we're dealing with right now. But the offshoot of this is we have reached a turning point. We've reached a fork in the road where we can either have chaos and what the Democrats want, what Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and the people that are willing, 30% of the population that are willing to go with that, with the leftist policies, regardless of what it does to the country. In fact, wanting this country to be punished, destroyed, replaced, a communist state, a socialist state, whatever you want to call it, they're fully willing to do that. We got 30% of the population that's on that side, and their minds will not be changed. Then you got about 50% of the population that is for the Constitution, for the way that this country was created from the beginning, and is set to continue to try to do whatever is necessary to protect the Constitution, to protect the Bill of Rights, to protect our founding principles, and to continue on the path that President Trump ushered in beginning on January 21 of 2017, which is to make America great again, and he's in the process of doing that. I want to transition to what I'm intending to do over the next days or weeks, God willing, is to highlight some of what has gotten us here through a lot of activity of the deep state. And what that's all about is gun running and other activities that the CIA, other government agencies, the FBI, the Department of Justice have been involved in for many years, and it intensified during the administration of Barack Hussein Obama, to the point where even journalists, and I have up here Sharyl Attkisson, one of the true heroes, a fearless reporter of truth. Sharyl Attkisson was with CBS back in the early 2000s, and she saw what was going on with gun running and some other issues, and she was honestly reporting on it. And when she started to do that in 2011 and 2012, when she was reporting on Fast and Furious, that's one of the names of one of the gun running programs, she started to realize that she was being hacked. She was being attacked. Her personal computer, her laptop would turn on its own, would do a variety of tricky things that no computer should be able to do on its own, at least until the AI system is unleashed upon us. And she tried to figure out what was going on. Well, she realized very quickly that what was happening is Eric Holder, the Department of Justice, Eric Holder was the Attorney General at that time, the FBI, and that's what we're talking about, people like Mueller, Comey, and those folks, and Andrew McCabe and a variety of others, the same people that are under the spotlight right now for their bad activities. somebody under their direction was hacking into her computer and causing her a variety of problems. She has filed a lawsuit against the Department of Justice, the FBI, against Eric Holder as an individual about that computer intrusion. So she has filed a lawsuit against the federal government. This goes back to when she was starting to realize what was going on in 2013, when she started to actually put the pieces together to understand that her activities as an honest reporter in 2011 and 2012 were being used against her in 2012 and 13 in order for things to start happening to her in retaliation. So she had her system reviewed, and there was an illegal cyber attack on her computer. There were IP addresses that were assigned to her computer in order for things to go in different directions from what they should have been doing when she was doing her normal journalistic and private activities using her computers. And so she filed a lawsuit against the government. She is pursuing it. It is continuing to make its way, as all these suits do, slowly through the government system. But she has gained enough traction with what she's doing and enough support by other people that have had the same kind of action taken against them. And now that you've got a variety of whistleblowers that are coming forward, like the ones that we've seen now that have either appeared before Congress, appeared before other agencies, filed whistleblower claims in order to try to protect themselves as they were revealing things. Dennis Montgomery is the name of one of them. He is being represented by Larry Klayman. Larry Klayman has been pursuing Montgomery's case and a variety of other cases. He has also been now representing Dr. Jerome Corsi, who has filed that $350 million lawsuit against the Department of Justice and Bob Mueller, the U1 Bob, and his nefarious gang of thugs within the special counsel. And what's happening now with Sharyl Attkisson's claim is, even though the Department of Justice has been slow walking this for 5 years, and the courts have not actually been hearing her case in a way that enables her to actually air her issues. But now that whistleblowers have come forward, she does have a court date. It is set now before the Fourth Circuit Court in Washington, D.C. The action is going to start on January 29. So this is Attkisson versus DOJ FBI. She does updates on her website. I believe that this is a place that you should check out routinely, Sharyl Attkisson, SharylAttkisson.com. If you go to her website, you will see what she is doing in order to not only protect herself and to take action against the nefarious deep state black hat people that have done her wrong, but she's also doing this on behalf of the American people. If we don't take action to fight back against the deep state, they will grind us into the dirt. Their whole nefarious scheme is to get to the point where nobody will resist them, because they have infiltrated over the last 50 years every department of the government. It is not simple just to clean out the 7th floor of one particular building like the FBI building in order for justice to go back to what it used to be 50, 60 years ago. These deep state players, these black hats, have infiltrated every agency, from the EPA to the Bureau of Land Management to the Department of Justice to the FBI, the CIA, and they will not stop until they are exposed and punished. And so what's happening right now, if you believe in a lot of the breadcrumbs that have been spread out there by Q-Team and others about how we had to go through this period for the last 2 years of things being set up, through judges being appointed, through the Supreme Court being congealed the way it is now with the representation that we have now that puts it more on the behalf of the Constitution rather than behalf of the deep state, that the regulations have been backed off. The whistleblowers now are more comfortable coming forward, even though they continue to be harassed and treated unfairly. The whistleblower movement in this country is kind of like the yellow vest movement in Europe. It is gaining steam and gaining momentum, and I believe that it will prevail. We will have a period of time of continued chaos now that we've got Nancy the Gavel Pelosi throwing her hammer around any direction she can. So we've got to deal with the fact that we now have one area of government, the House of Representatives, that is now ruled by the left, and they have immediately taken action against Donald Trump to impeach him over nothing. There is nothing impeachable. There is no crime and misdemeanor that has been perpetrated by President Trump or anyone in his administration that would even hint at the ability of the opposition to file any charges of impeachment, but that doesn't stop them from doing so anyway. They will continue to do that. And so as they continue to do their stuff, the thing to keep in mind is to stay strong, to keep your hearts intact, and that is with the knowledge that the true target during the 2018 election cycle was for the white hats to preserve control of the Senate. And that did take place. There were several elections, including some senatorial elections, that were totally bogus, and fraud enabled the Democrat to prevail. I would point to Arizona in particular. I believe that there's a very strong chance that that result in Arizona, with the Democrat having been declared the winner, will be overturned. I believe that they will be able to demonstrate that there was such massive voter fraud and illegal activity in the state of Arizona that the Republican will be seated and then will have a slightly bigger advantage in the Senate. But even if that doesn't happen, the advantage right now is strong enough, even though we do have some no name is gone, the flake is gone, Corker's gone, but in their replacement, the new Senate that has been seated also on January 3rd at noon, when the Senate was put into place, we do have a few less than supportive individuals with an R after their name, such as, let me pull one out of the hat, like the Mitt Romney, who apparently, when he failed to win his own election to become president back in 2012, not happy about that. And even though he approached several times President Trump to become President Trump's Secretary of State or have some other positions within the Trump administration, which would lead you to believe that he, Mitt Romney, did support President Trump. Why else would you strongly present yourself as a qualified candidate for a high-level cabinet position within the administration if you did not agree with the administration, at least as strongly as he's indicating now? And so you've got weasels, you've got sewer rats, you've got nefarious people on both sides of the aisle still that are going to continue to do whatever they can in order to bring this administration down and restore what they consider to be the true and better direction for this country, which is straight off the edge, off the cliff, into totalitarianism, into socialism, into communism, into tyranny, into globalism. And they can think that, they can believe that, but I believe that it's not going to succeed, that President Trump is still strong enough. And with people stepping up, like Sharyl Attkisson and Dr. Jerome Corsi and Larry Klayman and others, that there are still glimmers of hope. There are still people that are honest in government agencies. There are still judges on the court that hold the rule of law and the Constitution above their personal ambitions and above their leftist leanings. And even if some of the good people, the white hats, may at times either be blackmailed or coerced into doing things, there are people that are still conflicted between perhaps having the right approach and understanding as far as the rule of law, but under the thumb, there are just some opinions and tactics and positions taken by certain people that, based on their prior history in government, their prior history in politics, whatever it is, you compare what they did before to what they do now, and you just have to come to the conclusion that there's something else behind this. Either they had a brain aneurysm a couple days ago and it has gone undiagnosed, or that they are under some kind of cloud, third-party influence, something that is overwhelming their natural sense of fairness and order, and all of a sudden they start doing things. Or maybe that's an off-on switch that's broken. And, kind of think of somebody, I don't know, pull another name out of the hat, maybe like a Lindsey Graham, who on a daily basis, it's just like that. He's got these two wires that just kind of contact each other, and as long as they're completely bridged, then there's conservatism and there's decisions and action that he takes that makes total sense. But then it seems like he gets, somebody wraps him up alongside the head or whatever, and those the two wires aren't connecting anymore. And all of a sudden he reverts to this, no-name supporter, this, whatever you want to call it. He has some very interesting, different opinions one day than he has the next. So either he's bipolar, or, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not making a medical diagnosing. I'm just saying maybe there's something where he switches back and forth from one mode to another. I don't know if it's a dual personality issue or whatever, but we've got people in government we have to deal with that have some conditions like that. And the only way to deal with it is to replace them. And if you noticed recently, there are some activities going on. There's some on the deep state side, and there's some on the white hat side. And the deep state side, you've got on the one hand people bringing forward legislation that would change our Constitution and throw out the Electoral College, so that these migrants that are being allowed in, the terrorists and the drug dealers and everybody being brought across by the Democrats, who would then be given voter registration cards, particularly in the state of California, where anybody can sign up for a driver's license. And when you get a driver's license, they hand you the paperwork inferring to you that you can go right ahead and become a voter. They give you the voter card right away and so on. So once you have enough people that the popular vote will enable you to prevail in any presidential election from now on, regardless of the will of the people that actually have valid voter IDs and are the ones that are voting legally in the voting place, and only vote once, and the dead don't vote, and the felons don't vote, and all these other people don't vote. Well, then you can get back to the point where you have the rule of law enforced. So is it possible that all the chaos that's gotten us to this point, the chaos that's in place right now, for the deep state overturned, for action now to be taken, mobilized through the activities of President Trump and others, to turn that tide? Maybe January 2019 is a turning point, even though the House of Representatives is going to go down their merry path of insanity. The rest of the country is split, but more weighted on the side of the Constitution and order rather than chaos and communism, that we've still got a chance. So nobody should lose heart through this whole thing. You've got the passionate patriots like Sharyl Attkisson raising their hand and not allowing themselves to be ignored as far as their grievances and their mistreatment. Dr. Jerome Corsi and what he's doing with Clayman and the Clayman Law Group in order to fight back against the special counsel. A lot of that activity is continuing, but I believe that in the next weeks and months we will see a lot of things happen that will change the battlefield, that will change people's minds, that will truly give hope to the folks that have been holding out for all these months for the deep state to be turned back and for the light of day to start to shine on the darkness. So we will see as time goes on whether we truly are at a turning point, and the light will shine once again in places like Washington, D.C. But in the meantime, what we need to do, though, is not lose hope, continue to pray on a daily basis, however you choose to do that, and to think that there is a possibility that the light will shine through once the cracks that I see forming right now become larger. And over the next weeks, one more article, how even the deep state is convinced that they can prevent the rule of law from being enforced here, and for things like the illegal crossings to continue. There's a movement afoot to attempt to prevent the wall from being built And what I think is going to happen now is when Donald Trump gets to the point where he's expended all his political capital, everything going down the normal paths in order to get the wall funded, when we're sending in again $10 billion overseas for things that we don't need, but we can't spend $5 billion here at home for the thing that we need the most, which is protection of our border. I believe that the president will finally invoke, as a last step measure after all other avenues have expired, such as attempting for 2 years to get a Congress to pass a bill with just enough funding for that wall on the southern border actually to be built, that he will invoke his responsibility. It's not just his power, it's his responsibility as the chief of state, as the president of the United States, to protect us from evil over our borders. And what he will do then is use the fact that we are actually in a national emergency. There's another quote-unquote caravan, another horde of illegals headed our way. They will be headed towards the border to try to once again break through. Thank you, George Soros, because it actually could be the impetus for Donald Trump, President Trump, to then take some of the money that he had squirreled away in the defense budget, the biggest defense budget in history, and use that then to secure and to protect our border by using the Army Corps of Engineers, the castles, the castle emblem, the emblem of a castle, like a rook on a chess table, in a chess game, is the emblem of the Army Corps of Engineers. And they have the ability, the know-how, and they can get the materials to completely secure that border. All they have to do is have the funding to do it. And I believe that President Trump will use this opportunity, using his powers that were given to him by the Constitution, in order to take the money out of the defense budget. So Judicial Watch is reporting that weeks after the mainstream media outlets had reported that illegal immigrants don't bring disease into the United States, the Border Patrol has revealed that it's getting slammed daily with dozens of illegals carrying serious illness, including TB, that's tuberculosis for those in Rio Linda, as Rush would say, influenza, and pneumonia. Now, the point I was going to make around this is legal immigration, as it has existed for all these years in this country that the Democrats have now abandoned. One of the strict provisions of the legal immigration system is to ensure that your population is protected from serious diseases coming in. And I actually have, members of my family, my wife was bringing in some legal immigrants from the Philippines, and one of them was forced to remain in the Philippines because there was a false read for tuberculosis that turned out within a month to be shown to be a false read, and that person was allowed to immigrate legally over here. But if you allow people in that have these serious diseases, who's to say, just to think of this kind of a scenario that you've seen in some of the movies, pick an event that could be orchestrated by terrorists in order to dramatically affect us. What if they were to take one of these people that's in the caravan and infect them with something that's highly contagious, highly deadly, some kind of an Ebola offspring or something like that, and have them come in across the border and sneeze on everybody, and then you've got an outbreak kind of a situation? How in the world can you defend a practice where you would allow people to come in without being vetted that may have the ability, whether they know it or not? These people can be infected without knowing it and can be bringing in something that's so deadly that it could actually affect the entire population of the United States. When you think about, once you get within our walls, once you're here in the mainstream of the society, people can go anywhere and do anything. We don't have, maybe we should have a border wall between California and the rest of the country. Scratch my chin, just think about that for a minute. But we don't, and that means that once you're in the country, you can pretty much go anywhere you want. We don't have people at border crossings doing anything except making sure that you don't bring in the wrong fruits and vegetables. So, but what if somebody comes across this border? It just takes one. So all you think about to defend the reason for a strong border wall and the need for this to be finished, think about just one person. Let's argue from the left's point of view. 99.9% of these people, which is untrue, but I'm just throwing this out there. What if 99.9% of everybody in this caravan are They're fine. They don't have it. They mean us well. They're just coming up here to earn a living. They're not trying to hurt us in any way. What if one person out of that entire caravan has one of these highly infectious diseases, a new strain, something that was created by a terrorist, infected in a child, infected in a woman, infected in any member of that caravan, and they get through the checkpoints, and if the Democrats had their way, there would be no checkpoint. They'd just walk across the border, and they'd go over, especially in California, over where do I get my driver's license? Where do I get a vehicle so I can drive without insurance, even though every other legal citizen in California is required to show that they have insurance. But illegals are not. Illegals are allowed to drive without insurance in California. So anyway, what if they walk in across the border and then they just mingle with others and they start spreading that disease, and within a matter of weeks or months, the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people are sick and dying? Is that what it would take in order for even the leftists to say we'd want a wall? Or are they in the ilk of somebody like Bill Gates, who has said that 90% of the population needs to go away because we revere the dirt and the rocks, but we don't revere the people, and 90% of the population of the earth needs to go away? Maybe this would fit into their grand scheme. And if it turned out to be all of the people in the United States would go away and be replaced by, I don't know, pick people from another place in the world that would come in and replace them, I don't know, China. And then they would get the kind of world that they'd want, the tyrannical, socialist, communist, dictatorship, led by people like Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the Barack Obama, you name it, go down the list. And those would be the folks that would be running the country, and they would be happy to do so, and there would be a handful of slaves left, the ones that were either immune to the disease or were unaffected because they're hiding out in the backlands, the hills, and so on. But that is the vision that you really think that we want to have here? Or do we want to have order, constitution, foundation, a way of ensuring legal elections where there is no voter fraud? I vote for the latter, but everybody has to make up their own mind. I want to close out the show by just saying that the plan is to continue doing these live streams on a daily basis, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And to the deep state operatives, the New World Order governing overlords, the black hats everywhere, I say repent. Your time is running out. The hammer of justice is headed your way. Abandon the leaky ghost ship while you can. Save yourselves from this wicked generation. For we will never surrender, we will never be silenced, and we will continue to fight on to victory in God's name. So God bless you all, and we look forward to being with you again tomorrow, God willing, at 5 p.m. Eastern.